Hello everybody, in today's video, I'm probably not going to get straight to the point right away, so interpret that as you will, and I'm not going to, but anyway, I'm letting you know that ahead of time so that way you're not all confused, because when you clicked on this video, you probably expect me to just give you information. Like, you can scroll to the portion that you want to be, but it's whatever. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing why you should, if you consider subscribing, why you should think about it. Okay? Like, if you're looking at my channel and wondering, should I subscribe to this individual? Would this individual be good for my entertainment use, I guess you could say, or YouTube content video use? And I really like to make longer form videos as opposed to shorter form videos, because in longer form videos I can just simply talk at a regular rate or talk at a slow rate. I can't really do that with YouTube Shorts because it's limited, so I just kind of shitpost on there because shitposts are really short, so they're not really exactly, you know, how should I say, out there. But yeah, there are people who just only really subscribe for my YouTube Shorts. There are people who only really subscribe for my longer form videos, and there are some people that only subscribe for, you know, the posts that I make, the uploads, you know, those kind of things. Because that exists, you know, where you can basically just be, how should I say, X, but whatever. I'm one of those type of YouTubers who doesn't really have a true, consistent way of posting. So yeah, I might upload a whole lot on one particular day or, you know, throughout the week. But then eventually, I'll stop posting for a time, you know, and sometimes that could be a really, really, really long time. You know, it could be days, it could be weeks, months, or even years, depending on how things go. And this YouTube channel specifically hasn't been around that long, but I have had YouTube channels in the past where they were like that, where I haven't posted for like a year, or almost a year, because, you know, I wasn't exactly getting through it, and a lot of my channels and other things like that have been deleted. This is the only real channel that I have. It's my main channel, you know, the only real YouTube channel that I mostly use. Now, yes, I do have other accounts, but they're mostly backup accounts, and I don't really use them. And the only other account that I have, I just have it just to have it, you know. I don't really use it to do anything other than, oh, I got a funny username or something. But yeah, this is pretty much the only YouTube channel that I have, and this is the only real YouTube channel that I use. And I noticed that a lot of the people who watch my longer form videos, my subscribers, are very different from the ones that watch my shorter form videos, you know? Like, yeah, there is mix in between, and I am one of those guys who does watch and look at all posts. You know, I look at also playlists. I'm also, you know, somebody who looks at not just short form videos, but also long form videos. I use a combination of the two, you know, so I look at everything, because that's just what my channel is. It's a combination of it all, you know? And I try to use every feature that I can when I upload my videos, or try to see what every feature does. Because if you ask me, as a YouTuber, it doesn't matter, short, long form, posting, playlists, whatever. If there's a feature where you're not sure what it does, figure it out. Find out. Okay? Just same thing with the, like, your microwave or your stove or your fridge, if there's something on it that you don't know, or your vehicle or your house or whatever it may be, if there's something you want to know about it and you can, well, guess what? Figure out what all the buttons do. Figure out what all the things do. That's what I try to do. You know? That's why I often put, in my tags, I often put, like, stuff in my tags because I have that feature. I know what that feature does. You know? And there are some people who just upload videos just to upload videos. I am not kidding you. They will literally, you know, be like, oh, a video? Post. Like, they don't write a date, they don't write they don't show a thumbnail or anything. They'll just straight up take the video and just upload it to YouTube. Not even checking any of the lists or anything, just upload it to YouTube. You know, like, there are YouTubers who are like that. Why are they like this? I have no idea. But if you ask me, every time you upload a video, a YouTube video or a short, you should always look at the, you know, the features and stuff like that. So that way you can upload it to however you want it, you know, so that way you don't accidentally, you know, upload stuff. And what I like to do when it comes to, say, if it's not for kids or if it's for kids, I mark on the top one, I mark no, it's not for kids, and on the bottom, I mark the bottom one as well, where it's like, is this supposed to be allowed to viewers under 18, because it's like specifying, you know, that kind of thing, or whatever, and I click no, because it allows you to gain access to those videos on most school computers and stuff like that. And I'm saying school computers as in college, because I mostly prefer, you know, a lot, if you're a part of my audience, I mostly prefer, you know, a lot of the people on here to be adults, because I generally talk about more sensitive topics a lot of the times. But it's not like I only talk about sensitive topics, you know? I don't only talk about controversial stuff. I'm not meant to be the only controversial stuff channel, you know? That's what the news is for. That's what the news is fucking for. They're there to just say stuff just to say stuff, you know? Because that's what they are, the news, you know? And they don't really die off. Have you ever noticed that when a news channel finally does die off, they don't fully die off? They just die off enough where it's like, oh yeah, the other news channels might talk about it or whatever. But it's like, yeah, you know, it's like gone now, you know? Like, it's never really, it's never really something like super duper important or anything, you know? And I'm not really a drama slop kind of guy. I'm just somebody who talks a lot. And this channel is not exactly made for you, it's made for me, okay? This channel is made for entertainment for myself, you know? Or just like videos that I just wanted to make just to make it. And even the kind of stuff that I make now, I literally wouldn't have been able to make those kind of videos a year ago, even a year ago, because a lot of the topics that I talk about are just very, very sensitive to an extent. Some of the topics that I talk about, you know, like controversial flags, or, you know, say my opinion on pedophilia, which I'm not exactly the biggest fan of, you know, that kind of thing. And I'm not saying, oh yeah, every single, person on earth is somehow a pedophile or something. But it's like there are a lot of people who do interpret it that way, I don't know why, but they just do. And same thing with politics. There are so many people who just interpret everything politically, which first of all, go fuck off. And second of all, no, everything is not political. If you interpret everything as political, of course you're going to see it politically. That kind of thing. Now, yeah, there are those individuals that are like, oh, I'm not trying to be political, and then they do the most political thing ever. Yeah, those are individuals, those exist. But I mean, like, there are just certain things that we shouldn't be interpreting politically. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really think most people should be interpreting, what's the word? Sesame Street politically, because unless it involves politicians where they're doing political stuff, I don't know why they need to get political. And that's just one example, But again, I could understand if, it's supposed to be interpreted politically, but, a lot of things just are not political, And they try to inject politics into everything, They try to make everything about left and right, or center, or whatever. Try to make everything about liberal and conservative, Or socialist and fascist, that kind of thing. And it makes you really think. And you might go, what is you having to talk about these controversial topics have to do with your channel in particular? Well, I do often talk about these type of topics. And I do kind of get lost in the sauce with making these kind of long-form videos, because sometimes I make really, really long-form videos. So, I guess buckle in and lock up, because this might be a lot longer than I normally make for longer form videos. By that I just mean it's gonna be long. But another thing is that I have certain ways of thinking that people don't agree with, because I'm way too honest. Like, I've been exploited for my honesty. Like, that's basically how honest I've been before, because I just don't really like lying as much, But there are individuals out there who just, when they tell the truth, it makes them feel wrong, because they're more on the feeling spectrum than they are on the, is it actually true spectrum. And I'm not saying you're not allowed to have feelings or have emotions, but you should at least be able to find a way to control them if you can, if and when you can. Now, I'm not saying that you aren't allowed to have those emotions. Again, if you're a man or a woman and you want to cry in an appropriate time, you can go out and cry or whatever. Or have those anger emotions, those are negative emotions. The emotions that they tell you not to have. But on the other hand, just like how you should be allowed to have your negative emotions, you should be allowed to have your positive emotions. Because it shouldn't be only positive and it shouldn't be only negative, Just a mix enough where, yes, the positive should outweigh the negative, but in the way where it feels deserved, where it feels honored, where it feels like you can actually get to have it, where it's not just, you're just having it just to have it. Especially if you get porn addicted or drug addicted or gambling addicted, or even digitally, addicted, because being chronically online is not a good thing, because I don't know about you, but like, if you want to be online every once in a while, fine, but you shouldn't be so online to the point where you kind of forget the real world around you. And I'm not like, oh, you're just like used to being, in the digital world and stuff like that. No, what I mean is, like, have you ever felt so connected to the digital screen, especially if you're doom scrolling, which you shouldn't really be doing, but you get so connected to it that you're not even thinking about, you know, what's going on around you at all. You're not even thinking about what's going around you in real life at all. You know, to the point where it's just like, you forget that you're still in a room. You forget that you're still doing this or that. You're just in digital head. You know, you're just in your digital world. And then when you do realize it, it's just like, it just feels wrong for some reason. Like, you've gotten so addicted to being online that it just feels wrong to be offline, almost. You know, it makes you, in a way where you want to do something online, but you just don't know what. That kind of feeling is not what you should be feeling. You know? If you ask me, if you go online, fine. You're watching this video online. That just so happens to be. You got to do whatever you got to do. Online, you can do whatever you got to do offline. I get that. But what I mean is you shouldn't be feeling that way when you are offline. You should be feeling in a way of, if you want to include feeling, you know, not just logic and emotion. I would say the physical world is often better, and there's a reason why people are so obsessed with nostalgia. The reason why they're so obsessed with nostalgia is because, one, your algorithm keeps pushing it to you, and you think it's normal to act that way, which it's really not. Even for old people, they're like, yeah, I miss my when I was 36 or something, or when I was in my 20s or whatever. But on the same hand, you also got to move on. You know, you got to move on from 2016, which is really just, we're going to label anything prior to 2020 as 2016, but we're just going to call that 2016 because I remember it as greater. You know, like, you could have had a really shitty year that particular year if you were alive back then. And guess what? You probably don't remember it that way because you weren't thinking about it at the time, or you just don't remember it that way for whatever reason because, you know, nostalgia or whatever. But for those who were born in a year that wasn't alive for years in the past, say you were born after a year after 2016, and you never got to experience whatever 2016 might have been like, that's kind of a good thing because, well, it is a good thing because now you don't have to deal with whatever that year was like. You know, now you have to deal with, yeah, it may kind of suck to deal with whatever you're watching this in is. That really would suck, you know, because you have to deal with it now rather than, or in the future rather than in the past. But you won't have to deal with past people problems, if you know what I mean, because it already happened. It was already dealt with. Now you're dealing with current day and future people problems, or soon to be future people problems. You know? Like, you have to figure out how to deal with those, especially with the future ones, a lot more than the past could ever be, the present, or especially the past could ever be, you know, because the past is important to remember. The future is, the current day is just where you so happen to currently be. And the future is the idealized country that you want to be in, basically. Or the idealized world. You know how they say the past is like a foreign country? Yeah, there's a reason for that. And the farther it is, the more foreign it becomes. You know? Like, right now, it might not seem foreign to you because it just happened. But eventually there will come a time where you won't recognize, you know, why would you have nostalgia for a time you were never in? Or why would you have nostalgia for a time that you were in that you don't remember? Or if you do remember it, you have to realize that it was a long fucking time ago. You know? And I don't really want to be those kind of individuals who are just stuck in a certain year or something. You know? Like, I don't really want to be like that kind of person where they're just in the head. But anyway, we're with the digital stuff because or online things or whatever, because it gets you to do this or that. Don't get me wrong, there were things that were better in the past, but there were things that were worst in the past, you know? Like, there were people in the past that called the word retard the R word, which, if you ask me, it's not a good thing to call it the R word. It's better to just say retarded, because they actually know what you mean when you say that. Yeah, they might not like it when you say that, sure, but at least they know what you're referring to when you mean the R word. Like, it's not 1991 anymore. Like, move on, bro. Okay? You don't need to bring your inferior logic to people that can clearly understand what a word means. Yeah, they might be disabled, but that's just because they were born like that. It's not like they got that over their lifetime, you know? It's not like they could avoid that mistake. They got that from birth. They got that from fucking birth. Okay? Alright? And maybe in the future we could move on and get over words like nigger or nigga, because there are a lot of people, especially more, you know, offline than online. But there are these people that will literally, even though they are okay, like, they're not really okay with it, but they say that they are. As soon as you say a word like that to them, they will punch you in the face, because they need to learn the difference between saying words and actually doing real action, because the saying actions are louder than words means I could say a slur to you, but if you punch me to the face, that's worse than me saying a swear word, because saying words is not the equivalent of saying violence. It's not the equivalent of doing physical violence. Okay? That's not what happens. And I'm not saying that you should take abuse or whatever, but it's like, if you mean real abuse, that does often go into physical violence, because that's where you can really see a sign of, hey, there's something going on here that could lead to it. But it wouldn't make any sense to go arrest people or to, like, harass people who say those kind of things, you know? And it's just, like, it's very easily offended way of thinking, where you get offended because somebody said a swear word or a slur, you know? I don't consider the word gypsy to be a slur. I don't consider the word retard to be a slur. And technically speaking, if you're going by, like, regular daily use, I don't really consider the word nigger or nigga to really be a harmful thing, you know? Because they're just really words to me. Unless your words actually mean something, like they're a serious threat, I have no reason to be like, hey, why the fuck are you saying this to me? You know, but I'm not one of those guys who are like, oh, you can't say that. You're not allowed to say that, you know. If you have nothing good to say, don't say it. If you're going around telling people if you have nothing good to say, don't say it, there's something wrong with you more than them, you know? Because people who think like that don't often realize that if I interpret you're saying, you know, if somebody said to me, if you have nothing good to say, don't say it, and I interpret that saying as nothing good, then by its own logic, you shouldn't have said that, you know? Like, it's one of the few words where I might get physical with it, but nothing really, like, to the death or to fight over, really. just like, you know, don't say that. That's wrong, and, you know, that's wrong and messed up for you to think that way. Now, you can say those words, but that doesn't mean I have to agree with them. You know, it doesn't mean I have to like with them. But when it comes to other things, I don't have to hate everything, okay? I like saying words like influencer, alright? Now, yes, there are people who call themselves influencers that are not good people, but there are good people who call themselves influencers, you know? So there's not really any, you know, reason to just say, oh, I don't like the word. You know, what they really mean to say is, there's this one particular person I don't like that calls themselves that, therefore I don't like that word. You know? That kind of thing. And there are just a lot of people that are just like, they'll look at you and they'll go, how can I limit your freedom of speech? How can I make this political or religious spiritual, or whatever you want to say? You know? How can I make this about me? How can I make this a problem? You know, a threat, something for me to actually be angry about. You know, because they a lot of people online, especially online, will look for any excuse to be angry nowadays. You know, and in this generation especially, we are the most least and the most extreme generation to ever exist. We are the most least and the most extreme of everything. Anything that there can exist, it's either the least or the most extreme, and it's so common and so normalized that it's very, very rare that you find something that doesn't really apply to that at all, or somewhere in the middle, you know, like that kind of thing, or isn't perfectly in the middle, or isn't perfectly imperfect, or isn't perfectly perfect, you know, that kind of thing, just there, you know, like you can't just have that, you know, you can't just have that with that. It gets confusing, but I think you get the idea, man. And then it gets even more complicated, considering that there's a whole bunch of websites and a whole bunch of languages and stuff, that kind of thing. There are also accents and dialects and stuff like that. And man, I genuinely do think that people need to be online less. You know, I genuinely do believe this, because there's the whole debate amongst race and, say, sexuality and gender, that it's just to divide, you know, because they'll see like a person like me, for example, and think, oh, you're a white straight male by default, and they'll just, because that's what they assume, and they'll look at me and go, how can I make this keep you constantly engaged and keep you constantly controversial, you know, that kind of thing. And I'm not going to go try to be a lolicon, you know? I'm not going to go try and trauma dump on people. You know, I tried to do that back in, you know, when I had my older YouTube channels, and it did not go down well. It did not go down well. Well, anyway, there are many things that I could talk about or couldn't talk about. But, you know, I really do wonder what the internet could possibly do when when not everybody's going to be online as much eventually. You know, like, what are they going to do? How's the internet still going to exist? That kind of thing. You know what I mean? I don't know what else to tell you. Yeah, there are alternative platforms for YouTube or whatever, but it's like, what are you gonna do? You know, what are you gonna do when your whole YouTube channel gets deleted? With all those cool videos and everything, all the stuff that you have. what are you gonna do? You know? But if you ask me, YouTube should really make a YouTube time capsule channel. And I don't mean like, oh, they upload a video from a long time ago and it's just now surfacing. I mean like, for anybody to see at any time as soon as it's uploaded, you know, just like take videos. It doesn't matter if they're like super duper niche or super duper mainstream. That's how it should go. You know, if you ask me, the internet, especially YouTube, should recommend YouTube videos regardless of how big or how small they are, just the same, you know? Now, depending on when they were released, if they're recently released, you instantly start recommending it to, you know, as many people as there is, that kind of thing. But here's the thing. On the other end, you ask me, the smaller your video is, as in views and likes and subscribers and comments and shares or whatever, videos that have less of it should get recommended more, whereas videos that have more of it should get recommended less. You know, sort of like a niche filter, where like everything that is lesser known or everything that is less gets recommended more, you know? And anything that goes above, let's say, I don't know, maybe a million views, anything that goes above that gets recommended 10 times less, that kind of thing. I don't know how else to explain it, you know? Because it's interesting, but you know, probably more with the views than how old or how new a video is. You know what, scratch it. Scratch the whole how old a video is. It should be purely just by views, you know? Like, if you have a certain amount of views on that video, then like lesser, smaller, or just like not a lot, then yeah, that video should get recommended more. You know, like a lot, but the more, especially for longer form videos. But for, you know, videos with a lot of views, you gotta recommend it slightly less. And obviously, there's gotta be a minimum, and a maximum to this. And a minimum of like 0 views, you know, and a maximum of like, I don't know, 1 billion views, to how much you can, you know, have it promoted less and less. Once it gets above 1 billion, that's where you promote it the least, and that's the maximum, okay? If it gets any more views than that, that's fine, but that's when the video should get, like, a lot less recommended, you know, compared to, videos that have pretty much no views at all, or a few views, you know? Like, I literally like my own YouTube videos. I just do that, okay? Like, that's what I literally do. I literally just like my own YouTube videos because, well, you could do that. You know, I'm my biggest fan. I'm my real biggest fan, but I am neither your friend or neither your enemy. I am not your friend because I don't know you and I don't know you personally, who you are in private behind closed doors. But I'm also not your enemy because I don't know who you truly are, obviously, personally, behind closed doors, you know, that kind of thing. In private, like, I have no idea. And just remember, if it is digital, if it is on here digitally, if it is seen somewhere like that, guess what? Even if it's the most private conversation, it could or can be taken public. You know? Even if it's completely deleted and forgotten, for the most part, there will still be somewhere on the internet where it will be remembered. You know? So, there's that. And, yeah, there are a lot of more things I could talk about. There are a lot more other things I could probably mention. But I'm probably dead. You know, I'm probably dead by the time you're watching this. I could be long gone dead. I don't know. But, yeah, that's pretty much the end of the video. So, what do you think about the things said? Do you have any answers, thoughts, ideas, questions, facts, fun facts even? Maybe any, anything that you want to mention or that I didn't mention or whatever, Yeah, there are a lot of things that I can or can't bring to this YouTube channel. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm only going to really make a video like this at least once because, I gotta make some acknowledgement to it, but I'm not gonna do any subscriber special celebration videos unless I get really, really big in my lifetime, which I doubt. But you never know. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it for me, and I don't know. What do you think? If you have a response to give, if you want to give a response anyway, or need to give a response. But not everything is a need and not everything is a want. So, yeah. Alright. Anyway, I gotta get out of here so I can go, upload the video or whatever. But yeah, I think you get the idea. I am out of here. Bye. Yeah.